What is up, producers? I'm here today at 343 Labs in Manhattan, and I have some super exciting news for you guys. Ableton has been dropping a ton of super cool beta releases lately, one of which being their own auto-tuning device. So historically, in using Ableton, you've always had to use a third-party auto-tuning device. So be that Melodyne or Antares. There has never been a native one in Ableton Live up until now. It's currently in beta, and as of now, we don't have a specific release date. But I've had the pleasure of playing with it last month, and I can tell you it's absolutely phenomenal. It's definitely a competitor, in my opinion, with something like Antares or Melodyne. It's got a great sound, it's super capable, and today we're gonna hop in and take a look at it, review some of the features it has, and use it in some real situations to see how it sounds. So what is AutoShift? It's technically considered a real-time monophonic pitch tracking and correlation device. What does all that mean? It basically means that we can use this to tune our vocals, lock them into an existing tune, or have them match the tune of something else via MIDI. It's designed with vocals in mind. However, we can use this on different monophonic signals as well. So once we open AutoShift, we're greeted with this interface. Let's start with covering some of the more common tuning effects. For this example, we're going to be using one of our intern's vocals, Galactic Girl.
Wish that I had known better.
This is where you'll see the amount of pitch shifting. You can go up or down by several semitones, allowing you to create anything from slight detuning effects to full octave jumps. Listen to how this vocal sample changes as I adjust the pitch.
Wish that I had known better. Wish that I was taught by my elders.
Now let's talk about the formant control. This feature allows you to adjust the formants independently of the pitch, which can be particularly useful for vocal processing. By tweaking the formants, you can make a vocal sound more masculine or feminine, or create other unique effects.
Wish that I had known better. Wish that I was taught by my elders.
The fundamental of effective vocal pitching is having a good algorithm for pitch and for formant. If you manipulate these two correct in relation to each other, and they both have a good sound algorithm, you're going to get a very good auto-tuning effect, and we definitely have this here in AutoShift.
Wish that I had known better. Wish that I was taught by my elders.
So moving into the visual interface aspect of this device, you'll see that we have 100 cents on either side. So a cent can be described as a unit of measurement for what's happening between two pitches. So say if we have a D and we have a D sharp, there's going to be 100 cents in between that pitch change. So over here, it's going to show us how close or how far this is from locking to an in particular pitch.
Wish that I had known better.
As you can see directly underneath, it's giving us a reading of which note this vocal is resonating most closely to in real time.
Wish that I had known better. Wish that I was taught by my elders.
So just like any auto-tuning device, we can actually use this and we can adjust how quickly the vocal locks to a certain pitch and how aggressively that takes place. In order to do that, we're going to adjust the smooth and the strength controls.
Wish that I had known.
If we turn off smooth, it's going to give us a more T-Pain kind of harsh vocal tuning sound.
Wish that I had known better. Wish that I was taught by my elders.
Strength is going to be how strong the pitch correction that's taking place occurs.
Wish that I had known better.
So essentially at 0, there's no pitch correction taking place. Where at 100, it's a lot more audible and we can hear the correction.
Wish that I had known better. Wish that I was taught by my elders.
So down here, you'll see a piano roll layout. We can actually use this to select the notes that we want this to lock to, but we can actually do something a lot cooler. Because Ableton 12 has scale awareness mode, we can actually use the master scale of this track and lock our notes to that. Let me show you what I mean. So this vocal is primarily in G major, so we have scale mode set to G major. Now if we come down here, there's a scale awareness mode on AutoShift. So if we click this, now we can see this has changed and it's locking only onto notes that are within the key of G major.
Wish that I had known better. Wish that I was taught by my elders.
And this shift option down here actually allows us to shift this up or down scale degrees. So anytime on anything that has scale awareness, if you see SD, it's giving you scale degrees instead of semitones. So instead of moving up a semitone every time you adjust it, it's moving up a scale degree based on the scale that you've set.
Wish that I
So essentially, it's always going to be in key, even if we're shifting this up or down. So starting from left to right, some pretty unique functions we have within this device are these three options down here, which are high, mid, and bass. What these do is this is allowing us to select what frequency range we want auto shift to pick up the pitch from. So for instance, if we have kind of a higher vocal, female vocal, we can set this to high, and then it's going to use the high frequencies to determine the pitch, the incoming pitch. I typically leave this on mid. This also has an effect on how much CPU you're using. So notice if we adjust this, it's now going to show us some latency that's occurring down here. So bass is a lot more CPU intensive, high is the lowest, and mid is in the middle. I've come to find in playing with this that it's good to just typically leave it on mid unless you're dealing with maybe a super baritone low vocal or a monophonic signal that's either a bass or maybe a super high element. Then we have an option to select input gain. So if we want to crank the gain a little bit and have a little bit of a louder signal coming into this auto shift, we have this option here. Next, you'll see this MIDI in drop down section here. If we click this little arrow, it now opens up and gives us some MIDI options. So auto shift actually allows us to use an incoming MIDI signal to dictate the pitch of the vocal or the monophonic signal. So we have here a melody that does not at all match the pitch or the key of the track we're working on. So we're going to select MIDI on and then select our MIDI track.
Wish that I had known better. Wish that I was taught by my elders.
And now it's using our incoming MIDI signal to dictate the pitch. This is especially cool if we're trying to match a vocal with a melody we had written or vice versa. Pretty cool control. It also gives us some modulation routing options down here. So we can use the velocity of the incoming MIDI notes to dictate something like the pitch.
Wish that I had known better.
We can use different parts of the incoming MIDI to affect both the volume and the panning. A couple options over here. Note latch is going to make it lock onto the note until the next note occurs. So this is basically legatoing the pitch until the next note happens.
Wish that I had known better.
Then we have a glide option down here so we can glide up to the next notes, get a nice portamento bend.
Wish that I had known better.
So a lot of really cool settings for our MIDI people out here. Definitely a lot of possibility. So the next section we're going to touch on is the LFO section. So it seemed pretty interesting to me that they would introduce LFO on an auto-tuning device, but it's pretty cool. So just like the MIDI settings we just covered, we can use this LFO to affect different aspects of auto shift.
Wish that I had known better. Wish that I was taught by my elders. To me, right in the open for the whole world to see.
So we're now using this LFO to affect the pitch, the formant, and different aspects of this vocal in real time.
Wish that I had known better. Wish that I was taught by my elders. I didn't know till it happened to me. Open for the whole world to see.
And we can change whatever shape we want here. So we can go with a sine wave, a triangle, random's pretty cool.
Wish that I had known better. Wish that I was taught by my elders.
So next to the scale awareness button, we actually have what's known as live mode. And live mode is basically a way of reducing latency for doing something in a live setting. So for audio tuning vocals, perhaps during a live set or something, we can click this on and it's going to save us a little bit of CPU. So we have this little follow slider down here. What this follow is doing is it's determining how much of the formant shifting is following the pitch shifting.
Wish that I had known better. Wish that I was taught by my elders. I didn't know till it happened to me. Right in the open for the whole world to see.
Then our last row of options down here, we're gonna see vibrato. So vibrato is essentially quick changes in pitch in typically a vocal. So a little bit of waves in the pitch, and we can introduce these right here with this knob. I will note that we have to select amount in order for this to take place.
Wish that I had known better. Wish that I was taught by my elders. I didn't know till it happened to me. Right in the open for the whole world to see.
Then the last option we have down here is, of course, a dry wet knob. So we can automate this and use this to turn auto shift on or off, or we can use the tuning in an incremental amount.
Wish that I had known better. Wish that I was taught by my elders.
So now that we have a pretty comprehensive understanding of what auto shift is and all the different controls, let's look at some cool ways we can use it. So in this situation, if we had this vocal and all we wanted to do was subtly lock it onto the scale in which the vocal is taking place, we can come in here, use scale awareness mode, and then just lightly adjust the strength and the smooth until we get a clean, transparent vocal tuning effect.
Wish that I had known better. Wish that I was taught by my elders. I didn't know till it happened to me. Right in the open for the whole world to see.
So with lowering the strength, leaving smooth on, and kind of adjusting the smooth, we can get a very transparent vocal tuning effect. So she can still use effects like vibrato in her singing, and it's not going to lock it on aggressively. It just gives it a natural tuning. So this is one way it's definitely very good to use. The sound of it, I think, is phenomenal. I personally would have no problem using this in place of something like Melodyne or Antares. Now let's use it in a little bit more of an aggressive setting. Let's use this to kind of do the DJ octave down kind of sound. The important thing when approaching this technique is to make sure the formant and the pitch are moving in sync with each other.
You said, will you for me? Just stay behind the scenes for now. Got some things I gotta say. Maybe you're not ready to match me.
I've also found that you can use the LFO tool in a subtle way to kind of introduce some warping that might occur on like a vinyl record. So the slight warping in pitch, formant, volume, and panning kind of gives you those imperfections and some subtle changes in the melody that would most likely occur on a vinyl record when it's kind of spinning and it's sometimes a little faster, sometimes a little slower. So just one more pretty cool creative way that you can use auto shift in a non-traditional way. So overall, I think this device is super capable. I can't wait to see what everybody does with it when it's finally released. There's a ton of super cool devices that are right around the corner. If there's any that you want to see covered, let us know in the comments, and if we can, we'll get to them. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.